Hey y'all, CB here at MBS Welding. We got to get some doozins done today on my buddy's equipment trailer, so let's take a look at what we got. American trailers. This is, I believe these are built in West Virginia. The thing about this particular equipment trailer that is a lot different than a lot of them you run into, you see a lot of them with the ramps attached, and on the ones where the ramps are attached, there's a leg on the ramp that will make contact with the ground when you load a piece of equipment on it. And when that leg on the ramp makes contact with the ground, it stops the front of the trailer from lifting up the back of the truck. That's not the case with this type of trailer. If you see what all we got going on here, see we got a ramp dovetail deal coming down here. You can raise that up level like this with these stands. So it's got that feature, but as you can see, the ramps are straight ramps that just slide up underneath and stow under the trailer, like more like what you'd see on a lot of smaller car trailers, but obviously much heavier. These ramps are heavy enough to load skid steers and excavators and whatnot, but you do got to take them out by hand, and you do got to put them on the back of the trailer by hand. So you can guess what the problem is. It wants to lift up on the back of the truck. It wants to lift up on the back. The front of the trailer wants to lift up on the back of the truck when you load an excavator or something fairly heavy up on the back here. And what my buddy's wanting to do is have some sort of a leg. We don't want to go with anything as complicated as a jack. He doesn't think that that's necessary. I met with him yesterday and we talked about some different ideas. He doesn't want anything that makes obviously the trailer any wider than here, so that doesn't give us a lot of space here. That means that pretty much if we're going to have a leg that slides into a sleeve, the sleeve really can't be much bigger than 2 inches. So the question about that is, if you got a 2-inch sleeve, which if you're going to put a tube inside of a 2-inch sleeve, you'd use a 2x2 by 3/16 wall square tubing, and you could put an 1.5 inch square tubing inside of it. You would want probably your 1.5 inch tubing to be a little heavier wall for strength. And is an 1.5 inch tube going to be strong enough? Well, we talked about it and we want to give it a go. Basically the idea being that he doesn't think it needs a tremendous amount of help. Obviously the entire machine is not going to be sitting on these legs. The legs that we add to it are not that far from the axles. And the truck is still connected. These are just legs that are going to be guaranteeing that there is something else besides the weight of the back of the truck and besides the axles that will help hold the back of the trailer from dipping down and lifting up on the back of the truck. And basically what we decided was that if we're going to build this way, and if it ain't heavy enough, we'll cut it off there and do it again. We're going to try it. We're going to try it with a 2x2 by 3/16 wall square tubing sleeve, an 1.5 inch by 1.5 inch 1/4 inch wall leg, and then I'll be putting a foot on the bottom of the leg. Another thing to consider, if you're ever in a situation where you would have any doubt about the strength of the tube being able to support it, there's two things that we know of. One thing is, there's quite possibly situations where if you're on soft ground or whatnot, you might throw a 6x6 or a 4x4 block underneath of the leg. Well, if you did that, or if you added a 2x4, anything you added that made the leg shorter is going to make the leg stronger. The less that the leg is sticking down there, the stiffer it gets. That's something that you could consider to be as an advantage. Another thing about building it with the 1.5-inch tube, although some people might speculate that that's not very big of a tube to support weight. They have been doing this for quite a while, loading this thing with a tiny little set of jack stands that are aluminum. And they are very lightweight and very light built. And those aluminum jacks have been working just fine. So what I'm saying is that we are building out of steel something stronger than what they've been using, and what they've been using has not been any sort of failure whatsoever. The only reason they don't want to keep using what they're using is because it's not attached. It's something that you got to go get it every time you use it. So let's build this, and we're going to see if it works. And I think we'll be able to tell when we get it put together that it's going to work just fine. So stay tuned. Let's get to work. Got to hit y'all up real quick with a t-shirt ad. Boss Lady Tina's selling these t-shirts. Got NBS welding on the chest, American flag on the sleeve, great big NBS welding on the back. Send Tina an email request. nbswelding@aol.com, $25 plus the cost of shipping. Thank you. Get this going, we'll get some measurements and some angles here. I did get the trailer deck level. I set up the trailer with the trailer deck level, and then I used the torpedo level with my bevel square to get me an angle. Took a few measurements. Now I can use the angle that I've set on my bevel square to set the fence on my 872 chop saw. And obviously there's going to be a whole bunch of different pieces that I need to cut that'll be cut on this same angle. Both of the 2-inch sleeves, the 2x2 by 3/16 square tubing sleeves, the top and bottom of both of those will be cut on the angle. And the top of the 1.5-inch tube will be cut on the angle. So I'm going to make as many of these angle cuts as I can while I got the saw set that way before I go back to 90 degrees and cut. And you can see here the way I did on the 1.5-inch tubing. I just cut each end on an angle. Now I can measure and cut later. I grabbed a 1-inch square solid bar, and I cut a little piece at that angle. Now I'm going to square. So now that we're making the square cuts, I can tell you too what those pieces of 1-inch solid bar are for. Those will be my caps, because the 1x1 solid square bar fits inside of the 1.5 by 1.5 by quarter tubing to make a really solid top cap. So that's what I cut that for. And while I'm on 90 degrees, I measured back and cut the square cuts on my 1.5-inch tubing. Then come over here, this 12-inch sanders. It's really powerful, really nice, and these big sanding pads last quite a long time. So we'll get everything cleaned up here. That's a little quicker than an angle grinder for me. And we got to get some holes made. And what I'll be doing is using the regular 5/8-inch diameter pins like you'd use for a trailer hitch, really. Those are pretty easy to get a hold of. So that's what I'm going to use. And when you buy those, they're kind of nice how they're chromed, and they come with the keeper and everything. It's already got the hole in it. I don't think those parts are worth making. If I can buy that pin in chrome, it's the right diameter, and it's got the keeper, and it's like $3. I just don't think that's worth making. I just go ahead and I'll buy those at the store. I'm using the mag drill for all the 11/16 holes I want to make on this job. But you can see for the mag drill, for this kind of stuff, you kind of got to jerry rig things to get it to work. But it works fine. Sometimes you have to clamp stuff or manipulate things elevation wise on the table to use the mag drill. You're pretty much using the mag drill like a drill press. But another thing we're doing in this video, we're doing some grinder testing. And I just cut that with a regular plug in the wall grinder, 110 volt corded grinder. And we're also going to be making that exact same cut with the brand new Arc Captain 20 volt cordless 5-inch grinder. And we're also going to be making that same cut with a Makita 5-inch grinder. And one of the interesting things about this new Arc Captain product, it will accept a Makita battery. The Arc Captain battery will work on a Makita cordless tool. The Arc Captain charger will charge the Makita batteries, but the Makita charger won't accept charging the Arc Captain batteries. I don't know why, but that's the case. Showing you some of the features here. The Arc Captain cordless grinder has got some awesome features because one thing that's going to come in real handy when I'm working aluminum is the Arc Captain is variable speed. So if you're running your stainless steel wire brush on aluminum, you can slow it down, which is really handy. And for this test, I used exactly the same Bauer cutting wheel, and every grinder got a brand new wheel. So that was all fair. And since the Arc Captain battery works on the Makita, I charged the 2 Arc Captain batteries I got, charged them clear up, and those are the batteries I'm using. So we should be equal on batteries. Now, here's what's really interesting about this test. The Arc Captain won, no doubt. The Arc Captain 5-inch 20 volt cordless grinder outcut the corded 110 volt grinder. That's impressive. The Makita didn't do very good, and in the case with both of the cordless grinders, I pushed hard enough that they kicked out. And a cordless tool is kind of nice in the fact of safety, because if you overload it, it'll stop. Now, when I overloaded the Arc Captain, and then when I just let off the trigger and hit the trigger again, it went back to cutting. When I overloaded the Makita, I had to disconnect and reconnect the battery to get it to go back to cutting. But I even went back through the video and subtracted the time that it took me to disconnect the battery of the Makita, and it still was the slowest. The Makita was the slowest. The fastest was the Arc Captain, and the Arc Captain was fastest even though I included the time of letting off the trigger and hitting the trigger again on the Arc Captain. So it was clearly much faster than all of them. Anyway, that's what happened with the grinder test, and we're going back to work on this, figuring out where we want our holes in our post. I laid down the foot that's going to be under the post, and I made a mark. Then I laid the foot down with a 2x4 under it and made a mark. Then I did it with a 4x4 under it and made a mark. And I'm going to put holes in all those locations. That way there is some options, and there's also a hole that's going to hold it up when it's not in use. Now, I've caught hell on video a couple times when I was just drilling a few holes and I wouldn't use any lubricant of any kind, and people are saying, oh, why didn't you use cutting oil? Well, there's a lot of cases I don't use cutting oil because I don't want to get oil on the part because I'm going to paint it and I don't want to clean it off. Now, in this case, I was drilling enough holes that I did need to use something as a coolant. There are times I'll drill dry if I'm just drilling 2 or 3 holes. But I was drilling enough holes here, I was concerned about heat. And I used water. That worked as a coolant, and it didn't get oil on something that I was going to paint, so I don't have to worry about cleaning the oil off of it. The only thing you need to know about using water is if you use water a lot and then put your tools away and don't use them for a while, your bits will rust. So you might want to put some oil on them if you're going to store them. But now we're welding with the Arc Captain MiG 250 045 diameter solid wire, and I have been running 045 diameter solid wire in the MiG 250 for quite a while. One thing that's different is I had went on Amazon and bought one of the longer guns. It was supposed to be like 14 foot, 15 foot long, something like that. And I had it on here and was welding with it. I started having trouble with that gun. and I was having feeding issues, and I took it off and put an Arc Captain gun back on there, and since then I haven't had any problems. I need to get back and see what was wrong with that other gun, but I just haven't had time yet. So I just put an Arc Captain gun on there, and it's working good. And here I went and tried to put the wrong leg on the wrong side. There is a left and right because the way I did the foot, you don't want the foot to stick out. You want it to stick in. So here we're using the Hillbilly bridge crane just to raise each side of the trailer up enough to get the posts in place. And we're looking good. Pinned up. This is going to work. So in raw steel form, this is what it looks like. Got everything welded up good, and got our regular Reese hitch type pin in there. I get those at Harbor Freight for $3 or $4, and comes, like I said, comes coated with the zinc or chrome or whatever it is on it. They don't rust. I know that. It takes a long time to get rust on that coating, and they come with the keeper. And I just decided to do that instead of making those. I don't think they're worth making. So the other part of this job that my buddy was interested in having me do while I had the trailer has to do with the steps in the front. And the more we looked at this, and since I've changed it, the more we looked at it, I don't understand why they put the steps the way they did on these trailers, because they really just beat your shins up. You can see as I'm coming in that step I'm talking about on each side. When you step up on that step, it's hard to do anything because there's nothing to get hold of. And your shins are bashing into the trailer because the step is like way up underneath of there. And we couldn't find any problem with moving them. Like, I don't think the way I moved them is going to cause any issue with regards to bashing into anything or really getting them drug off or whatever. I mean, if it does, it does. I ain't scared. If he tears it up, I'll cut them off there and build him some new ones. I ain't worried about it. But I just can't figure out why they put them where they did, because where they put them doesn't work good at all. It just doesn't work good at all. So as you can see, that saw I had out that I zipped them off there with, that was my 8-inch Milwaukee metal cutter. And it did a fine job on that. And the one thing I don't have on film here was all the time it took to grind all the paint, whatever that paint or powder coat is that it had on it. There's quite a bit of time in getting rid of all that stuff. I didn't want to try to weld through it. But here we are again with the 045 wire in the Arc Captain MiG 250, and it did a great job on this, but getting it buzzed up. That was a good choice for this because it had the 045 wire in it. I've actually got some 025 wire in the MiG 205 Pro right now. I've been doing some real light and thin stuff with, and so that was like too small for this job. So having that 045 wire in the MiG 250, that was just perfect. But back to the issue with these steps. Now, if you look at where these steps are now, when you step on the step, you're not bashing your shin into anything because there's nothing directly above the step but your leg. And the way the front of the trailer's made, that bar that stops your car or whatever, your equipment, from going too far forward, provides a handle for you. When you put your foot on that step, you got something to get a hold of right there with your hand, and then you can step up here, and then, you know, this is just way better. I mean, if the guys that are doing these trailers this way are watching, this is how they need to build them, I think. And anyway, yeah, we got the back of this thing done and got some paint touched up on everything. I think it's really going to work out good for them. And I think it's another good job done, y'all. I want to thank y'all for watching. And like I always say, learn how to work with what you got. That way you always have everything you need.